Welcome to the immediate recap show / immediate reaction show for UFC Vegas 89. Amanda Ribas and Rose Namajunas will be throwing down later this evening. As you guys know, if you've been watching for a couple weeks now, you guys know that I record this as soon as every single fight wraps up, giving my immediate reaction to every single fight, showing you guys the odds and props that hit for every single matchup as well to see which juicy odds have been able to cash for some people. And then, it just allows me to remember things a lot clearer, especially when I hit record as soon as the interview wraps up, so we can speak about the performance. We can talk about their post-fight interview, if they called out anybody, if it was a good call out, bad call out, so on and so forth. And then, like I said, checking out the odds that cashed as well. So appreciate all the love and support over the last couple of weeks for the show. Hope to continue to see it grow. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the first fight of the night. Not often do we get a heavyweight fight to kick off the card, but that was the case tonight as we had Parkin going up against Mohammed Usman in a tepid-paced kickboxing matchup, which ultimately favored the kicker in Parkin, who was doing a great job in terms of beating up the lead leg of Usman. He ate some big shots in the early going, especially suffering that cut over his eye, but I thought he did enough in the second and third rounds to chip away at Usman, and I thought a lot of Usman's shots were empty, especially considering he was really exploding into those shots, and Parkin did a great job in terms of staying away from them and then making him pay with perfect counters, as well as mixing in those calf kicks as well. It looked to me that Parkin was really targeting not as much the calf, but like the knee, like upper calf knee area, and I think that's why it didn't end up having more effect earlier on in the matchup. We saw one of the last big ones that landed actually buckled Usman, causing him to, like I said, fall, and that probably really allowed Parkin to pull away in that round, much closer than I expected it to be. Like this whole week, a lot of people are shitting on Parkin, saying that he should be the underdog here. I don't know what it is, but I see a little bit more in him than most people do. Like his boxing and his striking, not that bad. He has solid cardio to go 15 minutes if he needs to. And I thought if he wanted to lean on his grappling here, he could have had some success, especially later on in this matchup. So very weird that he didn't go to it once, especially to try to wear on Usman and try to slow him down. But it didn't end up mattering, as he still, in my opinion, went out there and did enough in the second and third rounds to win that fight on the scorecards. Happy, especially considering he was my lock of the night play here. Felt very confident in him. It was a little bit of a sweat early, like I said, but I'm very glad that he still managed to come through and cash that ticket for us. All right, let's look at the odds I cashed. Minus 135 on the money line. I got minus 140 earlier this week, so not a ton of line movement throughout fight week. By decision plus 170 comes through, and then the over 2.5 cashes at minus 170. I had a small poke on the round 3 submission prop at plus 3,000 on Parkin, because like I said, I expected him to maybe implement a little bit more wrestling and grappling to try to wear on the gas tank of Usman, but he didn't choose to do that at all. He just chipped away at that base of Usman and caused him to slow down a little bit and just kickboxed his way to a unanimous decision here. So Parkin is now tied for the longest heavyweight winning streak in the UFC at 3. He says he wants to get back in the cage for July because apparently they're going back to London. Why not? Throw him in there. Don't know who they would give him. Maybe even the winner of the co-main event tonight. That wouldn't be a bad spot considering he is tied for the longest active win streak in the heavyweight division. So let's start moving him up a little bit here. Let's see what he brings up next. But tonight, he ends up getting the unanimous decision victory over Mohammed Usman. What an unfortunate end to such a fantastic fight between Igor Severino and Andre Lima. It was plagued by a ton of fouls that were being unchecked by referee Mark Taioni, or Chris Taioni. I don't know why I said Mark. But there were a ton of fence grabs on behalf of Andre Lima that helped him out in certain situations that was only just warnings pretty much, and probably warranted a point deduction at a certain point. But ultimately, the most foulest foul of them all ended up coming from the Igor Severino side, as he bit Andre Lima very visibly on the inside of the arm when he had the back of Lima and was looking to try to drag him to the ground. Got a serious chunk out of his arm there. Not a good look for Severino, who seemed to be a very bright prospect. Now, the first round, two judges scored it in favor of Lima, but based on the analysis that I had going into this fight, I suspected that we would see Severino start to take over in the second and third rounds. Looked like that was possible with the takedowns that he was landing, some of the control time he was getting as well, and with Lima starting to slow down as well. But we are not going to be able to see how that fight would have unfolded had it gone the full 15 minutes, or at least gotten into round 3 as well. Great work from both guys. The big qualm I have about this matchup, though, is why the UFC decided to line up two fighters that just came off the Contender Series, still young in their career, undefeated, and then line them up against each other as the second fight of the night on just a random UFC Apex card. It makes no sense. You got to develop these fighters. I know the flyweight division is not as deep as some of these other divisions, but to go out there and put these two together right from jump is not a good look. You got to develop these guys a little bit more. And I hate when they do, when fighters are just coming off the Ultimate Fighter, they match them up in their next fight. Or if they just come off the Contender Series, they match them up in their next fight. It makes no sense to me. What's the point of the Contender Series if you're just going to make them fight each other again when they get to the UFC? Make them fight somebody that's already on the UFC roster, whether it's somebody coming off of a loss, somebody that's on a 2-fight losing streak, somebody who just picked up their first win in the UFC. Do that. Don't put these guys together right from jump when they're making their UFC debut against one another. So very unfortunate outcome to this matchup. I doubt they'll do a rematch, although I wouldn't mind seeing it considering the fireworks that we saw between the two. But yeah, very unfortunate. I had some money on Severino there. I really expected him to start taking over. So a very unfortunate way to have to rip up a ticket there. Speaking of tickets and bets, let's check out the odds that cast for this matchup as Lima comes through as a -165 favorite. Now, this is kind of uncharted territories for some bookies. More often than not, you see by KO, TKO, and DQ kind of just mushed into one. And for this one, it was plus 220. Round 2 plus 700. Round 2 KO/TKO/DQ plus 900. And then the over 1.5 cashes by 30 something seconds or 20 something seconds. That comes through at -185. Again, phenomenal fight. Very unfortunate ending there and result. Lima gets the win. By the way, I hated seeing one of his cornermen crying afterwards in such joy and happiness to get the win. I don't know if they're broke and they just needed the win bonus as well here, but that's not the type of performance or outcome you want to be celebrating to that extent. Take the dub, move on, but that's not a legitimate victory in my opinion. Just my 2 cents. Daria Zelezniakova comes out on top by unanimous decision by defeating Montserrat Rendon on the scorecards. Now, the scorecards were kind of all over the place for some of the judges here. Personally, I thought if you were to make a correct scorecard, it was either rounds 1 and 3 for Daria or rounds 2 and 3 for Rendon. That's the third round was close. We got some solid control time from Rendon. She was unsuccessful on a bunch of takedowns, landed minimal damage. Daria landed some good body shots, but there was nothing huge in terms of really swinging it in either realm. But all 3 judges actually scored the third round in favor of Daria. Now, this is where it gets a little bit weird. Round 1, 2 of the 3 judges actually scored in Rendon's favor. I thought that was Daria's round more than anything, as I thought she landed more damage there. And then in round 2, 2 judges scored it in Daria's favor, as that's where I thought we saw Rendon have most of her grappling success and even open up some cuts and make it look bad damage-wise on Daria. And then obviously the third round, again, close round. They ended up giving it to Daria, but very weird fight. Neither woman really making it seem like they deserve really to be in the UFC. Rendon seems very strong and physical, but it's unfortunate that she doesn't really have the technical skills to employ her grapple-heavy approach that she tries to get going. On the regional scene, she mainly just showed a striking style where she's just landing her 1-2s down the pipe. And considering the damage that she was able to land on Daria, it's insane that she's unable to really get any knockout victories on her record either. Again, very weird, ugly fight. it could have gone either way. Can't really be mad about that. Taking minus 240 on Zalesniakova, kind of sketchy considering how close that fight was, but I had to rip up a Randa and take it around that plus 220 line, but it is what it is. We knew it was going to be close. It literally just came to some small key moments as to how Daria ended up winning that fight. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. Like I said, Zalesniakova comes through minus 240 on the money line, by decision plus 125, and then the over 2.5 cashes at minus 280. Yeah, I don't want to see their next fights. Let's just put it that way. Let's move on to the next one. Probably one of the bloodiest fights we've seen in a long time. Jarno Erens is able to pull off the upset victory and batter Stephen Wynn en route to a unanimous decision victory. Great win for Erens, who was 0-2 through his first two fights with the promotion, but manages to finally get his hand raised here and likely save his UFC roster spot, as we know that if you do find yourself on a 3-fight losing streak, you often get cut. But luckily for Erens, he had the perfect game plan, the speed, the striking combinations, the shots down the pipe. They were all on point here, going out there and outstriking the striker in Stephen Wynn, who normally goes out there and utilizes a similar style. But it was Erens who was able to get to the chin a lot quicker, more often, and then obviously showing as much visible damage as Wynn did. The judges had no choice but to give that fight to Jarno Erens. Good win for Erens. Not mad about that. I had low confidence on the win side. No bet for me there. Knew it would be somewhat of a closer fight, but I just couldn't get to the betting window on Erens. Speaking of betting window, let's check out the odds that cast here. Erens money line comes through at plus 135, by decision plus 420, and then the over 2.5 cashes at minus 170. Good win for Jarno Erens. But something I quickly want to touch on in regards to the Igor Severino and Andre Lima fight. Just saw now that Kevin Ioli tweeted that the UFC is going to cut Igor Severino due to the bite. I guess I understand it. Big bummer considering the skill set and the potential this kid had. Still very young. I think only 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Still has a ton of time in his future. Hopefully, he can maybe just go back to LFA, get a couple more dubs there, and then get back on the UFC's radar. But man, that's such a bummer to have somebody's career cut short, especially in the UFC level, because of something so unfortunate. Again, it seemed pretty deliberate, so I understand the swift and strict type of decision here from the UFC brass, but give the kids a couple of years to just get his shit back together, get his confidence back. I'm sure he's going to be very gutted after this type of occasion. Yeah, I just feel for the kid. I really feel for the kid. Yeah, but just getting back to Erens, he picks up this unanimous decision victory over Stephen Wynn. Miles Johns puts on a very gutsy performance and gets Cody Gibson out of there by unanimous decision. And Johns showcases that continuous slowing down style late in matchups, but manages still to do enough to go out there and win those rounds. It's very wild to see, and I think Laura Sanko hit it on the head when she compared him to a guy like Yoel Romero, or even from another guy, Omari Akhmedov, guys that look like they have horrible body language late in fights, but they're still able to grapple when they need to grapple, scramble when they need to scramble, or at least land big enough shots, pot shots, to make it look like they're landing enough damage to still earn the judge's nod in those rounds. It's wild that Johns is still able to get away with it, but that's just what he does. It's crazy. Like, I would love to see what he looks like in training. Like, I know he just doesn't train for 15 minutes. Obviously, he has, he trains hours a day, I'm sure. But it's crazy that he continues to slow down late in matchups, but still be successful with it. Absolutely insane. Great work from Johns in terms of staying away from the danger that the veteran Cody Gibson presented, but he still goes out there and gets the win. Let's check out the odds that cast here. Johns comes in as the minus 135 favorite and gets his hand raised by decision plus 190, and then the over 2.5 cashes at minus 180. Johns is always going to be in that just top 15 to 20-ish. He could probably crack the top 10, but this is a good win for him. Getting a little bit of a run going now too. Solid things ever since he's joined up with Marathon MMA, which is headed by Trey Ogden, who fights very shortly here as well. Curious to see how this gym continues to evolve. They got Garrett Armfield as well, who picked up a win over Brad Katona earlier this year. Trey Ogden's rolling as well now. Keep an eye on Marathon MMA, especially if their head coach is able to get a win here in a few fights over Kurt Hala. Absolutely unbelievable that Ricardo Ramos has now been submitted by guillotine in back-to-back fights. The Charles Jourdain one, I will let go. Charles obviously working on that guillotine defense, especially considering how many opponents normally look to take him to the ground. But to get submitted by Julian Erosa, who you just heard seconds prior, by guillotine. Ramos is supposed to be a high-level BJJ black belt, but he is not showing any of that over his last couple of fights. Very unfortunate performance and turning into a legitimate bust career considering how high of hopes people had for him when he first made his way onto the UFC scene. Back-to-back losses for him now, but big up to Julian Erosa, who's able to go out there and snap that 2-fight losing streak that he had. He was on the cusp of getting cut. He was knocked out in back-to-back fights, just became a father as well. So this was a big win, possible performance of the night as well for him, but there has been some chaos on this card already, so I don't know if he'll get that, but maybe they can get him some sort of new father bonus, especially with him going out there and getting a finish the way that he did. Erosa's in that weird realm where he just continues to exchange wins and losses, never really is able to build the momentum required to really break in to the top 10, top 15 of the division, but he's always going to be a tough out in terms of being a veteran gatekeeper for guys looking to either rejuvenate their career or save their career, whatever it might be. Erosa is always going to be there to just shut the door if he doesn't feel or if the fighter is really not ready for that next level. All right, let's check out the odds that cashed here. Erosa comes through, I believe, as the first underdog of the night. No, sorry, Jarno Erens was the underdog, the first underdog. So it's the second dog of the night to cash here. Comes to our plus 150, by decision plus 550, round one plus 750, round one sub plus 1600, and then the under 2.5 cashes at minus 170. Again, I had no action on Ricardo Ramos on this card, but absolutely devastated that he's lost back-to-back fights now by guillotine. Very unfortunate. Good win for Julian Erosa to get back on track. A near flawless performance from Trey Ogden as he picks up the unanimous decision victory over Kurt Hala. Now, I'd say near flawless, but it could be seen as a flawless performance. But I do think that he did get clipped with a couple shots before he was able to eventually land the takedowns, especially in that second round. But it doesn't seem like any of those shots actually affected him too badly. He knew he was going to have to eat a couple before he was eventually able to set up the perfect takedown attempts that he had. And then from there, he just absolutely smashed through that guard of Hala and then did a great job in terms of controlling heavily from that half guard position. I love the over-under control, shoulder pressure control that he had, keeping Hala on his back, unable to, allow Hala to, try to creep under and try to get some sort of reversal or get up situation going. But great work from Trey Ogden there. Really, becoming much better than a lot of people were expecting, especially considering that he lost his UFC debut to a fighter of Jordan Levitt's level. Now, I think that fight was more so of an anomaly more than anything. I think Ogden is a very skilled fighter, a very intelligent fighter, and I think that he'll continue to showcase that through his own performances, but also his ability to coach Garrett Armfield and guys like Miles Johns as Marathon MMA, his home gym, which is he's the head coach of, starts to continue to grow in popularity and grow in recognition. He said they're on a 7-fight winning streak as a team now in the UFC. It's hard to deny those guys. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how he continues to progress. But one thing I just wanted to address, a lot of people were shitting on my Trey Ogden pick here. Now, officially speaking, I had 3 units on him at minus 150. I had him in my Locky 2-step parlay, which ended up cashing with Mick Parkin being the first step at the first fight of the night. That comes to a plus 188 for us. But I also had Ogden in my three best prop bets in terms of winning by decision, and that comes through for us as well. And the comment section, I was seeing on Twitter as well, some people are just absolutely shitting on Trey Ogden as a chalky spot here. I didn't understand it. People kept going back to the Jordan Levitt fight, but you have to, shout out to my guy Scott Shelvok, who brought this to my attention years ago. But like, whenever you're breaking down fights, you got to look at it from like a macro perspective and not so much a micro perspective. And I believe a lot of people are micro overanalyzing the Jordan Levitt performance and overlooking the smooth performances he's been having of late. As of late, the Daniel Zellhuber fight, the Ignacio Bahamondes fight was a tough fight for him to overcome. Physically speaking, the range advantage and the striking advantage that Bahamondes had there kept Trey Ogden pretty much nullified. But you also have to consider that Ogden took that fight on super short notice, and you can tell through this fight that he is a very game plan oriented type of fighter. So to have to flip from fighting a guy like Manuel Torres to Ignacio Bahamondes in the span of 2 weeks, I don't think he had the time to really study, break down, and come up with a game plan to beat a guy like Bahamondes. Now, does he beat Bahamondes on any other day? Maybe. I don't want to say for sure. I'd still probably favor Bahamondes in that spot, but I do believe that Ogden needs to be given a little bit more leeway and understanding and flowers, and the fact that he's a smart fighter and can go out there and execute game plans properly. And in terms of this fight, Kurt Holobau's takedown defense issues are rampant throughout his career, but he's not fought many guys that have been able to keep that top position, not get submitted or get reversed or end up, getting back to their feet and getting knocked out by a dangerous guy like Holobau. Ogden had the intelligence and Ogden had the skill set to go out there and do just that. So I was very impressed with Ogden's performance here. Happy to rub it in the face of some of the people that were talking shit, saying that, shout out to one of my guys. He comments on my videos often, so I don't want to shit on him too much, but this is more of a, point for your boy Locke here when he said, friends don't let friends bet Trey Ogden or a guy that lost to Jordan Levitt. But this was the perfect stylistic matchup. I knew Ogden had the jiu-jitsu skills to compete with Holobau on the ground, and I knew he had the game plan ability to get this fight to the ground and be safe the way that he did. So this fight pretty much goes to a T as I expected it, and Ogden goes out there and gets the dub. Let's check out the odds that cashed here. Ogden moneyline minus 145 comes through by decision plus 150, which was also one of our three best prop bets that I dropped for you guys this week. And then the over 2.5 cashes at minus 150. I look forward to seeing what's up next for Ogden and how he continues to improve. But like he said, next up for him is going to be Garrett Armfield, who I can't remember off the top of my head who he has matched up next, but still be interested to see how those marathon MMA guys do. After a frustrating loss to Kyle Nelson back in September, Fernando Padilla was able to put on a statement tonight as he went out there, dropped Luis Pajuelo, and then eventually sunk in a Darce choke, I believe it was. It might have been an anaconda choke as well, but he still goes out there, gets the submission halfway through the first round and showcasing that he is still somebody that we need to take seriously. Now, I was very underwhelmed with his performance against Nelson, which is why I was a little bit more intrigued on the Pajuelo side. Again, maybe falling victim to that micro/macro approach that I spoke about a little bit earlier, but still I felt that Pajuelo would be able to walk him down, land some shots, and as long as he was able to, withstand most of the shots coming back his way, his durability has been pretty decent on the regional scene en route to the UFC, and stay away from any of the choke games from Padilla. He should have been able to come out on top, but Padilla put a stamp on it, dropping him, club and subbing him. Absolutely beautiful performance there from Padilla with his frame, and if he continues to show this type of variety of strikes, especially early in fights with his kicks, his knees, and his elbows, this guy's going to be a problem. He's very dangerous when he can start getting those that Muay Thai going, just as we saw in this matchup. Let's quickly talk about the odds that cash. Then I want to quickly touch on something that he said in the post-fight interview. Padilla comes through as the favorite at minus 180, by submission plus 550, round 1 plus 380, round 1 submission plus 1200. I wish I got a little nibble on that, as I felt that would be his best path to victory in this matchup. And then the under 1.5 cashes at plus 150. Now, he mentioned in the post-fight interview with Paul Felder that he is the Mexican John Jones, and I think that's a good moniker to give him if he can really just put his entire game together well. His range makes him very dangerous, especially with the way that he whips his kicks, hurts the calf of his opponents, brings the knee up the middle, lands some elbows as well. If he can continue to stay free flowing like that and not be shy in terms of throwing his strikes out there, he could really become a problem in this division. This was an eye-opening performance for me. It wasn't really big on Padilla in the past, but I'm not going to make him a lock of the night play next time or anything like that. But I would like to see his continued progression, and if he's able to go out there and continue showing this type of improvement, this type of fight IQ, and this much ruthlessness, and the variety of ruthlessness he brings to the table, it's a thing of beauty to watch for sure. Fernando Padilla goes out there and gets the first round sub over Luis Pajuelo. Way to make a return to the UFC as Yusuf Zalal goes out there and submits Billy Quarantillo in the second round, the first person ever to submit BJJ black belt Billy Quarantillo. And it was a great all-around performance from Zalal, who seemed to be in the driver's seat from minute one till the second round, where he was eventually able to get that submission victory there. Now, a lot of people were shitting on Zalal coming into the UFC, or coming back into the UFC after going 0-3-1 through his last 4 fights with the promotion, then going to the regional scene, getting 3 first-round stoppages against abysmal competition, we can be honest, and a lot of people didn't think he deserved to come back to the UFC. But this is a kid with a tremendous amount of talent, and realized that he just needs to flip a switch in terms of being a little bit more aggressive and asserting himself in fights a little bit more, so that he can go out there and get wins. And that's exactly what he did against Billy Q in this spot. There's a lot of line movement on Zalal this week, as he actually opened up around plus 140, if I'm not mistaken, and closed nearly as a pick'em and even as a favorite in some spots as well. Apparently there was some news about some possible injury that Billy Q had suffered going into this fight. I know Billy is expecting a newborn child in the coming weeks as well, so maybe he just wanted to fight, win or lose, just to try to get a little extra money to help with the birth of the new baby. But very weird situation on the betting line going into this fight. But I wish I got to the betting window with Zalal. I predicted him to win this fight at plus 140, thinking we'd get some action on Quarantillo, but it ended up being the other way around, and then I just missed too good of a number on Zalal that I ended up passing on this fight. But regardless, great win for Zalal, showcasing that striking, showcasing the improved grappling as well in terms of his aggressiveness. I thought if this got into the grappling, that would favor Quarantillo, but Zalal did a great job in terms of maintaining dominant positions and then eventually sinking in that rear naked choke the way that he did. Big win for Yusuf Zalal. All right, let's check out the odds. That cash share Zalal money line minus 120 comes through. That was the closer on FanDuel. By submission plus 1200, round 2 plus 1400, and then round 2 sub plus 3800. Going to be tough to see if anybody else can top that in the rest of the night. I highly doubt it. And then the under 2.5 plus 200 comes through. Again, big win from Yusuf Zalal. Very curious to see what this era of his career brings to the table. But if this performance tells us anything, we have to keep our eyes on him. You would think that Peyton Talbot was a minus 500 favorite going into this matchup, considering how he demolished Cameron Simon over the 5.5 minutes that it took for him to go out there and just pummel Cameron Simon and eventually finish him in the second round. Now Talbot, very talented. This guy has immaculate striking, his ability to set traps and spring them on his opponents, and throwing in combinations, utilizing that beautiful knee up the middle that just had a shot that reverberated all over the apex when he landed it cleanly on Cameron Simon in the first round. And Simon, obviously was hurt, but the fact that he still managed to survive that and see the second round is insane. It was a well-timed jab, I believe, that ultimately dropped Cameron Simon after he had already faced so much damage in the first round, and he could only take about 20 seconds of damage in the second round before the referee was forced to step in and stop that fight. Talbot, insane. Well, let's just quickly talk about Simon. Kid is still young. Kid still has a ton of time to grow and become much better, right? Obviously, last time around, he came up short against Christian Rodriguez, and now he comes up short against Peyton Talbot. Two very, very talented and tough guys who will eventually find themselves in title fights within the next coming years. So Cameron definitely still has a bright future, just a bad run over the last two fights against very talented prospects. But getting back to Peyton Talbot, it's crazy to me that he's only been doing mixed martial arts for 7 years and he looks so crisp and clean. He's very patient, he doesn't rush anything, and he just lets the knockout come if that's what ends up happening, and that's what happened this tonight. I look forward to seeing how the UFC moves him up moving forward. Obviously a bantamweight, unranked at this point in time, but you got to believe that they're going to throw him in against a top 10 to top 15 fighter moving forward. The kid has it. We got to, whether you like him or hate him, the kid definitely has it, and his performances speak for themselves as well. So very much looking forward to seeing how they continue to move him up. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. Talbot minus 155, by knockout plus 380, round 2 plus 850, round 2 knockout plus 1300, and the under 2.5 cash is at plus 150. Now, I just quickly want to talk about the fact that a lot of people were disrespecting Peyton Talbot going into this weekend, similar to the Trey Ogden hate that we were seeing. A lot of people not believing that Talbot had what it took to be as dominant as he was tonight, giving Simon his flowers. And I was an early adopter of Simon, right? I picked him as a plus 200 underdog on the Contender Series. I just felt he had the edge over Josh Wang Kim that night. And then I faded him correctly moving forward with Christian Rodriguez, and obviously tonight with Peyton Talbot as well. And I didn't understand the hate for Talbot. Throughout his regional career, he was fighting guys that would look to take him to the mat, but he showcased improving takedown defense. And a lot of people were giving him crap for the first round that he had against Nick Gary. And, although he got taken down and controlled throughout that round, that's a Gary strong suit. That's what a Gary was dummying people with on the regional scene, eventually coming over to the UFC. So it was a minor slip up from Talbot in that first round, and then managed to really get it back in the second and third rounds where he was eventually able to finish Nick Gary. So people hold on to small moments of, weakness for a fighter and then assume that's what's going to be the downfall of them moving forward. But you have to take into consideration that these fighters can still go out there and make improvements and adjust some of the things that they've done wrong in the past. Talbot is a guy definitely to keep an eye on in this talent-stacked and rich division of just insane skills in this bantamweight division. Peyton Talbot, dominant knockout victory over Cameron Simon in the second round. It wasn't looking that good early for Edmund Shabazian as he got hurt on a couple of occasions in that first round, and we even saw Dobson have some good control from that top position when Shabazian was unable to get that fight to the ground successfully in a dominant position of his own. But ultimately, it was in the final minute of that first round where Shabazian was able to put together some solid punches to finally hurt, drop, and finish AJ Dobson by TKO. It was a much-needed win for the 26-year-old Shabazian, who may have peaked amongst the public a little bit too early about 4 years ago during COVID, when everybody wanted to march him to a title shot, until he ran into Derek Brunson, who was able to break him and finish him in that third round. But Shabazian has gone through a ton of trials and tribulations as of late, training over there at Extreme Couture full time now. I believe we'll continue to see improvements from this kid, although you have to wonder what his cardio is still like, what his durability is like against guys that would be a little bit cleaner than Dobson. But this is a step in the right direction for Shabazian in terms of his confidence and ability to go out there and still get his hand raised. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. We had Shabazian moneyline at minus 195, by knockout plus 155, round 1 plus 300, round 1 knockout plus 370, and the under 2.5 cashes at minus 135, which is a spot I wish I had taken a shot on myself, knowing that Shabazian was either going to get the early finish or possibly slow down and get finished himself later on in this matchup. But it is what it is. We live and we learn. But good work from Shabazian to buck the trend of the losing skid that he was on. I believe it was just one loss actually he's coming off of, but still glad that he managed to get his hand raised this weekend with a second round knockout over AJ Dobson. In the early goings, it looked like Justin Tafa's takedown defense was going to hold up, especially with how badly he was hurting Carl Williams. But then a couple small mistakes in the first and second round ultimately allowed Carl Williams to secure that top position. And then from his back, it seemed like Tafa really had nothing. It was eventually a Carl Williams unanimous decision that earned him the victory. But I really want to talk about Justin Tafa's takedown defense. Now, going into this matchup, he had only faced 2 official takedown attempts throughout his UFC career, and he stuffed both of them. But we knew in this matchup he was likely going to get tested in that realm, and we saw some decent work from him when he was defending traditional takedown entries from Carl Williams, digging the underhooks, fighting the hands, working back out into distance. But then it was just stupid mistakes like throwing a knee at a point where he had his opponent hurt very bad, or throwing a head kick and then falling on his back, allowing Williams to get on top of him. And then you could see all the energy pretty much sucked out of him in that third round when he overextended on his punches a little bit too much, allowing Williams to get him to the ground and just hold him down. It seemed like there were plenty of opportunities for Tafa to explode and try to get out of those spots, especially with how much Williams was slowing down. But he just didn't seem to have it in him. So credit to Carl Williams for, exchanging in the fire in some spots and then eventually still being able to get the takedown and grind out Justin Tafa. I must say this, as somebody who lives on the East Coast and is currently recording this at 12:20 a.m., please don't ever put heavyweights that go to a decision as the co-main event on these cards. Please. Good God. This is horrible. It's like they're almost doing it to mock us, as I saw somebody say on Twitter. I'm struggling here to stay awake. I've been watching MMA for almost a full 12 hours today, as we had Octagon and LFA earlier today as well. And I'm just like, there were some fun fights on the main card, but this co-main event just sucked all the energy out of me. Like I'm hoping this Ribas and Namajunas fight is quick, because good Lord. And if you're watching this after the fact, you probably know that this main event maybe went the full 5 rounds, and I'm probably hating life the entire time, but I'm still out here making content for you guys because I really appreciate all the love and support. All right, let's get back to the co-main event here. Let's check out the odds diecast. Williams minus 180, by decision plus 180, over 1.5 cashes at minus 170. Again, decent performance from Williams. Nothing that's going to be awe-inspiring. He's tough to deal with in the clinch and the grappling. He has some good top control, but I know that somebody with better takedown defense and better cardio is going to be able to really start to pull away in the second and third rounds and possibly even finish Williams in those spots. So, good win for Williams. Horrible location in terms of where to put this on the card. They should have put, if they wanted a heavyweight fight in this spot, they should have put the Usman and Parkin fight in this spot rather than this piece of shit fight that we just got. Yes, I'm pissed off. I apologize. All right, let's hope this main event is either 1, entertaining, 2, quick, or one of those two. Let's see. Well, shit. We end up going the full 5 rounds, but had it not been for me having some money on Rose Namajunas, I probably would have fallen asleep during this main event. But I was very glad that Namajunas was able to showcase some solid takedowns, or at least scrambles and controlling. And you saw her ability to just keep her head in the chin/chest of Ribas, not allowing Ribas to get off on any sort of submission, allowing Namajunas just to accrue control time, but also land some minimal damage to the body and head of Ribas as she kept that fight on the mat. She comes through by unanimous decisions, 2 49-46s, with those judges only giving Ribas round 3, and then there's one 48-47 where that judge gave Ribas rounds 2 and 3. I thought, if anything, well, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I wasn't paying the closest of attention to round 5 because I had seen a scorecard somewhere floating around that was 3-0 Ribas. I don't know why. I knew that was wrong, but I don't know why the hell it stunned me so much. It didn't make me second guess the fact that Namajunas was actually winning the fight. I was just wondering what the hell that person was thinking to score that, the first 3 rounds all in Ribas' favor. And it even made it even more hilarious when you saw Ribas at the ending of every round raise her hands like she won the round. I even tweeted something about it being like a Petr Yan / Aljamain Sterling type vibe after Yan was raising his hand after he lost by disqualification. But Still, good win for Nama Yunus. This is her first win up at flyweight since making the transition. She seems a little slow. She was landing some good pot shots at times, but I feel like the top of the division is still going to give her some issues. Manal Fidel put on, the first solid 2 rounds that she had against Nama Yunus. I would love to see that over 5 rounds, but I feel as though Nama Yunus might struggle at 125 pounds against the top of the division, but we'll see how they continue to move her along. Macy Barber is a good next matchup for her, in my opinion. Maybe possible number one contender there, especially considering we got Erin Blanchfield and Manol Fidel fighting next weekend, and that is surely the number one. Actually, now I can't even say surely, considering Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso are coaching the next season of Tough, which means they'll probably fight in September or October. So they'll put these top flyweights on the shelf for a little bit. I'm assuming Blanchfield and Fidel, the winner, will get the title shot, so they'll probably sit out at least a year. But regardless, we're talking about Nama Yunus here. Good win for her. Shout out to Ribas. I thought her lack of striking defense would come back to bite her in the ass here. She showcased good durability, good chin, but it also didn't seem to me that Nama Yunus was looking to knock her out. We didn't really see many head kicks from her, and I think that's more so that she didn't want to get taken down and give up any control time to Ribas, who's obviously very, very dangerous on the mat. But yeah, Ribas will be back from this. Should definitely be back. All right, let's check out the odds that cash. Nama Yunus moneyline minus 210 comes through by decision plus 260, and then the over 4.5 comes in at plus 110. Again, all in all, good performance from Rose. Let's see if they can keep her active. She's only 31 years old, so there's still time for her to perform at a high level. Again, this performance, although solid and efficient, it doesn't give me high hopes in seeing her going out there and snatching the flyweight title anytime soon. All right, let's put a bow on the show. Let's go over the recap stats here real quick. There were 2 knockouts, 3 submissions, 7 decisions. It was a long night. It is currently 1:15 a.m. and the card just wrapped up. There was 1 disqualification. Obviously, we were talking about the Andre Lima and Igor Severino fight. Unfortunately, Severino obviously out of a UFC job now as well, so that probably sucks. Favorites went 11-2, only 2 underdogs. Able to pull off the upset here with Jarno Erens as well as... why is it escaping me? Jarno Erens and Julian Rosa pulling off the upset wins there, so good for them. Performer of the night. This one was a tough one. We had some pretty solid performances. For me, the runner-up is Peyton Talbot. Obviously, his phenomenal striking approach and absolutely shutting out Cameron Simon there. But I gotta go with Yusuf Zalal, right? As I touched upon earlier, coming into the UFC on short notice, I should say, returning to the UFC on short notice after getting cut, put on a tremendous performance. Didn't let Quarantillo have any success in that fight, and then to go out there and give Quarantillo the first submission loss of his career. Again, big things for Zalal. Definitely worthy of a performance of the night, and definitely the moniker of performer of the night for my immediate reaction show. Let me know how you guys did on the card. I came out with some solid profit. It would have been nice if Severino didn't bite Lima, as I felt like momentum was kind of going in his favor, so it would have been nice to cash him as an underdog. But still, up about 4 units on the night. Very happy. Lock of the night comes through. Dog of the night does not. But again, only 2 underdogs ended up pulling off the upset, so I'm not too mad about that. Let me know how you guys did. Did you guys cash any of the juicy props that I talked about? Let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on Monday for the UFC Atlantic City breakdown. Not to mention, we got ACA 173, LFA 180, and Cage Warriors 169 all going down next Friday and Saturday. Can't wait to break it down for you guys. I'll see you guys on Monday. Peace.